A hospital in Rome will still call you alive 15 minutes after a hospital almost anywhere else has called you dead. It's the same body and the same flatline, two different times of death, and both of them correct. If death were simply a fact about you, that couldn't happen. So here is the sentence that decides it. In law, you are dead at the irreversible cessation of circulation, or of all functions of the brain. And almost everything that matters about this question is hiding inside that one word. Because irreversible isn't a description of a body. Nothing about the tissue tells you whether a thing can be undone. It is a prediction about what is going to be done next. And a prediction needs somebody to make it. The international standard is more honest about this than the American one. It swapped in a different word, permanent. And it defines permanent as the point where no effort will be made to reverse it. Not cannot, will not. This definition's younger than you probably think. A committee at a medical school wrote the brain-based version in the late 1960s. The American law followed about a decade later, and most states adopted it almost word for word. The modern moment of death is younger than the pocket calculator. It wasn't discovered, it was drafted by people in a room. Which brings us to the wait. After your heart stops, nobody pronounces you immediately. They stand there and they watch the clock. The international standard for that wait is 5 minutes. In parts of the United States, it is shorter. In Italy, by law, it is 20. Nobody's being careless. They are all reading the same evidence and drawing the line in different places. So let's look at the evidence. A study called Depart, published in the New England Journal of Medicine, followed several hundred patients after life support was turned off. In 14% of the ones they could review, the heart started beating again after it had already stopped. The longest gap before it returned was 4 minutes and 20 seconds. And here's the part you would never have known. Only about 1% of those restarts were noticed by anyone at the bedside. Across all the reports ever gathered, hearts have restarted on their own anywhere from a minute to 20 minutes after stopping. So the 5-minute rule isn't a fact about your heart. It's a bet somebody placed on your behalf, and it's a good one, made by people who looked hard at the numbers. But it's a bet, and somebody chose the odds. Now the number you should really sit with. Researchers counted 65 people whose circulation returned after the doctors had already stopped and stepped back. 18 of those 65 people made a full recovery. Let that sit for exactly 1 second, because it sounds like a nightmare. And then look at what's actually happening in that sentence. Those cases are counted because doctors went looking for them. They published them, and the recommendations changed. Watch 10 minutes longer. Keep going for 20 when the heart is completely still. That's what it looks like when the line moves. It isn't a discovery about death. People deciding they had drawn it in the wrong place. Then the line started moving outward on you. In an experiment called Brain X, written up in Nature, pig brains were connected to a machine 4 hours after the animals died. Cells across the tissue started doing their ordinary work again. Structure held, and some functions resumed. And the researchers went out of their way to say what didn't happen. There was no organized electrical activity. There was nothing there that could be a mind. They designed it that way on purpose. A later version of that work, called Organ X, restored some function across a whole body a full hour after all blood flow had stopped. And human retinas, taken after death, answered a flash of light up to 5 hours later. None of that's a person coming back. The people who did the work say so plainly. It's cells being less gone than the definition assumed. Now the line moving the other way. Because the 4 to 6 minute rule you've heard has a large exception, and it's cold. A patient was recovered with a body temperature of 13.7 degrees, 9 hours of CPR. The patient recovered fully. In one northern region, nobody at all survived this kind of arrest until the end of the 90s. After they changed how they treated it, more than a third of them did. One patient's heart was restarted after 6 hours and 52 minutes without a beat. And there's a machine version of this argument too. In one trial, taking over circulation mechanically raised survival several times over. A second trial tried the same idea and found no real difference. and more bleeding. You get both, because the honest answer is that they disagreed. And there's a third way to look at this. Irreversible depends on your temperature, on the equipment in the room, and on who is standing in it. And be careful not to turn that disagreement into a story about progress. It isn't that one trial was right and the other was behind. The two studies ran in different systems, with different teams and different times to treatment, which is exactly the point. The same heart, in the same condition, is reversible in one building and not in another. That difference isn't biology, it's logistics. And the definition knows it's in trouble. The law that will be applied to you says all functions of the entire brain. The tests doctors actually perform don't check all of them. Everyone involved knows it. The most recent guideline needed dozens of separate recommendations and had to be settled by getting everyone in a room to agree because the evidence underneath was too thin to do it any other way. Then a procedure arrived that can restore blood flow to the brain of someone already pronounced dead, which could one day mean you. Transplant doctors themselves pointed out that doing so would undo the diagnosis. Canada resolved it by redefining death as brain-based, no matter which route you arrive by. America tried. The Uniform Law Commission started rewriting the definition, and if you live there, this is the sentence that would have applied to you. 2 years later, they stopped. The large majority of organizations that commented wanted a revision. They couldn't agree on one. So the definition of death in American law is openly known to be broken, and the people whose job it was to fix it went home. Which is where this leaves you, and it isn't where you would expect. Because the frightening reading of all this is that the boundary's arbitrary. It isn't. Irreversible always has a person standing behind it. Sometimes that person is a room full of lawmakers in Rome. Sometimes it is a commission that gave up. And sometimes, for the 4 to 6 minutes that matter most, it is whoever happens to be standing next to you. In Denmark, the number of people who got CPR from a bystander went up by about 20% over about a decade. Among those who survived, the number who died within the year fell by more than half. And getting CPR from whoever was there cut the risk of brain damage or a nursing home by almost 40%. None of that was a machine, or a law, or a committee that finally agreed. It was a person who simply decided not to wait. And that was the whole answer, hiding right there in plain sight. So the boundary isn't a wall you eventually hit. It's a line that people draw. It's moved several times inside one lifetime. And the part of it that's closest to you is the part you can move yourself.